It's such a nice day. I wanted to be outside even though the light is a bit stark out here and bright. All of what I'm about to say comes from an article in BBC.com by a guy named Luke Kemp. I thought it was so good, I wanted to pass it on. So here's a very brief synopsis. You can find the link for the article below this. History shows that during times of crisis, politicians tend to reach for more power. It's happening again now, and democratic citizens should be wary of the dangers. During COVID, many governments around the world have sought to tackle the pandemic by broadening their governmental powers, such as with lockdowns, surveillance drones, facial recognition, internet censorship, media censorship, and contact tracing. These strategies have perhaps saved millions of lives, but if left unchecked and if not rescinded, these emergency powers are prone to deep abuse. This is not an argument against swift, dramatic, and beneficial action, but it is an argument that if such strategies become the norm, only political and social disaster will ensue. Most troubling is when emergency powers become legislation. That often is never undone, and the illegal becomes legal. When data mining and surveillance expand along with censorship, they are too often used for control rather than benefit. There is surprisingly little evidence to support the effectiveness of mass surveillance in combating terrorists or viruses. There is little data, if any, on the benefits of contact tracing apps. Nevertheless, contact tracing apps are becoming the norm, not because they work, but because they allow the government to have information. In other words, they benefit the government more than they save lives, so the government enacts them. One recent study found that 87% of the global population is now living in countries that can be considered repressed, closed, or obstructed. You see, COVID-19 is not an outlier, but another push down a path many people are already being dragged. The greatest danger is that the exceptions, because of a crisis, become the norm and the law, and such despotic drift is not uncommon. We see it in ancient Rome, the Middle Ages, Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and places like Chile and apartheid South Africa. Emergency powers tend to only go one way, top-down and enacted. During an emergency, the government reaction is always to stomp down, to curtail freedom, and to shut down opposing voices. Politicians say they are rescuing people from chaos and danger, yet the overwhelming scientific and historical evidence contradicts this justification for power grab. Instead, communities tend to increase altruism and self-organization in times of catastrophe. The irony is that often this power grab actually represses a community's ability for goodness and organization, stealing away the most beneficial forces of society and the justifying of their own crushing strategy in its place. This stomp reflex is a power grab built on ideology, not evidence. Kemp ends his article with this paragraph, which I will quote, COVID-19 is just one of many threats we will face over the coming century, from climate change to cyber warfare and potentially bioengineered pandemics. In the coming decades, we face a choice between letting disaster steer the world towards control and corruption or towards democracy and solidarity. If we continue with the stomp reflex, the true disaster would be that we move ever closer toward a world in chains. I thought it was a great article. This is only a Reader's Digest condensed version, so talk to me. Let's discuss this. And look at this. Isn't this a beautiful place? Look at where I am. Astounding. Talk to me.